this is the story of AT. Why AT? There's so many symbols you could pick from. Well, it actually is a really interesting and important character and has quite a rich background. First of all, it is fundamental to all communication and collaboration that you have. So you certainly couldn't put together an event like this without AT these days. And I hope you got the pizza, by the way. This was actually recognized as well by MoMA, who actually said that AT was now a design icon. So they actually incorporated it, acquired it into their design and architecture collection, saying that it had actually developed new forms of behavior and interaction in a new world. And I actually experienced this sort of importance of AT when I was traveling in South America, and you go into an internet cafe and there's no AT on the keyboard, and you're just sitting there kind of lost. It's your means of communication home, and you suddenly miss this little character. But, you know, AT is probably at the pinnacle of its career right now, but it hasn't always lived this rich lifestyle. It's actually come from quite an obscure background. For a long time, it was actually used in a more commercial world. Starting with medieval monks who were using it, but during the 16th century was really when it came to prominence as an abbreviation for amphora, which was a unit of measure. So it was known as commercial AT and was very much used for buying 6 apples at 20 cents each type of thing. So in 1885, it was first introduced to an American keyboard, but it was underutilized, and it went through the sort of dark and lonely years where people didn't really use it very much. But it was only then in 1971 where this lovely looking man, Ray Tomlinson, was working on electronic communications, and he needed to find something whereby you could talk to different computers. So he needed to associate a name with an address, and so he picked AT. And so it was very easy in an English-speaking world to bring this in, but in the rest of the world, they actually didn't have AT on their keyboards. They didn't even have a name for this character, and the word AT meant nothing to them. So they actually started to embrace this character and to develop lovely little nicknames for what they could call this thing, because they didn't have a word. So they based these nicknames that they had maybe around the shape or what it looked like or what it associated with them. So used all sorts of things to associate with it. One of the first of those was food. So, for example, the pretzel, the Swedish cinnamon roll, the herring, which I'm not very sure about, but my favorite is in Hebrew, it's known as the strudel, which is a lovely one. But they also, a lot of people think it's quite like an animal. So there's all sorts of things like the monkey's tail, the pig's tail, the elephant trunk, the snail, the little mouse, or the curled up cat. And our Finnish friends might be able to pronounce this, but it's the sound of the meow. In Russia, they actually just use the puppy, which is really cute. And someone even developed a whole set of AT symbols based on different breeds of dogs. So people really did embrace this. But they also looked at things like what the name actually represented to them and how it looked. So in Turkish, it's called the rose, but there's also people call it the elegant A, the beautiful A. And in Serbian, I love this, it's just the crazy A. All these different people have this lovely affection for it. But what about in Ireland? I certainly haven't come across anything other than it being called AT, which is all a bit boring. The only thing I did come across was one person who'd actually said they'd heard of it being called the AT yoke. But they weren't sure whether this was a yoke or a yoke. I don't know if they knew that all Irish people call everything yokes. So I haven't come across an Irish name. So that's what I'd like to do in this talk, is make a proposal on what we should really call this lovely little character. Something affectionate. We'll follow this kind of rule that other people have. So something which is a term of affection and an animal that we might associate with the country. So maybe something like horse racing, we could think about that. But we also want something that reflects the sort of modern culture that we have here in Ireland. So we have this history of music and songwriting. And, you know, being able to laugh at ourselves as well is always really important. So there's really one idea that just comes to mind. I'm not sure if you've quite got it yet yourselves, but it'll be my lovely horse. So what more could identify what we should really call this little character? So that's my proposal. I think that we should all start calling AT my lovely horse. And I don't know if you will all agree with this proposal or not, but if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can email diffuse my lovely horse, IxD.ie, or on Twitter, my lovely horse, diffuse Dublin. That's the story of AT.